On my 30th birthday, while my family gathered around the dining table counting my failures like candles on the cake, I sat there knowing something they didn't. That next week, they'd all be begging for invitations to an event that would make them choke on their own words. My name is Verity Morrison, and this is the story of how I turned their whispers into my war cry. Picture this: 8 people around a mahogany dining table, each one looking at me like I'm a math problem they can't quite solve. My mother, Diane, 58 years old with perfectly styled gray hair she refuses to admit is gray, sat at the head of the table adjusting the flowers she'd arranged to spell out 30 in white roses. She used to be a school principal, which means she still treats every family gathering like a performance review meeting. "Verity, sweetheart, sit here," she said, patting the chair they'd designated for me, the same spot I'd occupied for 30 years of family dinners, facing the wall of family photos where everyone else's wedding pictures surrounded my solo college graduation, shot like a fortress of matrimonial success. My father, Gerald, 61, and still wearing his accountant's uniform of khakis and a polo shirt even on weekends, was already doing that thing where he polishes his glasses to avoid making eye contact. He's calculated my return on investment as a daughter at least a dozen times, and I never seem to break even in his spreadsheets. "The birthday girl arrives," announced my brother Preston, 33, checking his Rolex for the 3rd time since I'd walked in. Preston works as an investment banker and never lets anyone forget it. His Tesla Model S was parked outside at just the right angle so everyone walking by could see the logo. Only 20 minutes late this time. "Traffic?" I said, though we all knew I lived 15 minutes away. Preston's wife, Tamara, 31 years old with extensions that cost more than my monthly rent, was already filming everything on her phone. "Oh my God, Verity, you look so cute, very vintage chic. Is that dress from Target?" It was, but the way she said it made it sound like I'd shown up wrapped in a garbage bag. "Leave her alone," my sister Roxanne chimed in, bouncing her 6-month-old on her hip while her other 2 kids ran circles around the table. Roxanne is 27, married at 22 to her high school sweetheart, and considers herself the family's success story. "Not everyone cares about designer labels, Tamara." "I'm just saying image matters," Tamara replied, angling her phone to catch the late afternoon light. "Speaking of which, everyone squeeze in for a quick family selfie." "This lighting is perfect." My Uncle Chester, 55, recently divorced for the 2nd time, raised his beer. "Let's get this party started. 30 years old. I remember when I turned 30. Had just bought my first boat. Still have that boat, actually. Want to see pictures? We've seen the boat pictures, Chester," my mother said sharply, then turned to me with that smile that never quite reaches her eyes. "Verity, honey, you must be starving. Working at that nonprofit, you probably don't have time for proper meals." "I eat fine, Mom." "Of course you do," she said in that tone that meant she absolutely didn't believe me. "Now, everyone to the dining room. I've made all of Verity's favorites." The dining room was decorated with those generic party store decorations, 30 balloons in silver and gold, streamers that looked festive from far away but sad up close, and a banner that read, "Happy Birthday," in cursive font that was already starting to peel at the corners. "Wow, Mom, you went all out," I said, and she beamed like I'd just complimented her on winning the Nobel Prize. "Nothing but the best for my baby's milestone birthday," she said, though we both knew she'd thrown Roxanne a catered party at the country club for her 30th. As we sat down, the assessment began immediately. "So, Verity," Preston started, cutting into his pot roast with surgical precision, "still at that same nonprofit?" "Yes, still fighting the good fight at Hope Foundation." Right. "And they're paying you, what, 40,000? "Preston," my mother scolded, though I could see her lean in slightly, curious about the answer. "What?" "I'm just saying, at 30, you should be thinking about financial security. I had my first 100K in savings by 28. "We're not all investment bankers," I said, passing the green beans. "No, but we all have the same 24 hours in a day," he replied, that stupid motivational poster quote he'd learned at some leadership seminar. Tamara jumped in. "You know what you need, Verity?" "A side hustle. I've been killing it with my influencer partnerships. Last week, I made $50 promoting these appetite suppressant teas." $50 whole? I asked, and she missed the sarcasm completely. Right? It's so easy. You just need to build your brand. What's your Instagram handle again? I don't really use Instagram. The table went silent like I'd just admitted to not believing in oxygen. You don't use Instagram? Tamara looked genuinely shocked. How do people know you exist? I exist in real life. But that's not enough anymore, she insisted. You need a digital presence. How else will you meet someone? And there it was, the topic they'd all been dancing around since I walked in. My mother set down her fork. Speaking of meeting someone, Linda from book club has a son. Mom, please, just hear me out. He's a podiatrist. Very stable career. He owns his own practice and everything. Podiatrists make bank, Chester added helpfully. Feet are recession-proof. I'm not interested in dating Linda's podiatrist son. Why not? Dad finally spoke up. You can't be picky forever, Verity. I'm not being picky. I'm being selective. Same thing when you're 30. And single, Roxanne said, then quickly added, no offense. None taken, I lied, stabbing a potato with perhaps more force than necessary. The conversation continued this way through the entire main course, each family member taking turns, suggesting ways I could improve my obviously deficient life. Preston offered to review my resume, just to punch it up a bit. Tamara volunteered to give me a makeover for her YouTube channel. All 12 subscribers would love it. Dad pulled out his phone to show me articles about women who found love after 30, so there's still hope. Mom disappeared into the kitchen and returned with the birthday cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting, my favorite since I was 5. She decorated it with 30 individual candles, each one representing another year of disappointments, I supposed. Make a wish, she said, her voice bright and brittle. As I leaned forward, the candles flickering in front of me, I heard them. They thought they were whispering, but 30 years in this family had taught me that the Morrisons don't actually know how to whisper. 30 and still single, my mother murmured to Chester. I was married with 2 kids by her age. Still in that studio apartment, Dad added, shaking his head. Waste of her business degree. Still driving that old Honda. Preston not quite whispered to Tamara. Things got to be on its last legs. Still shopping at Target, Tamara whispered back. So sad. Still pretending that non-profit work is a real career, Roxanne contributed, shifting the baby to her other hip. I paused, the heat from 30 candles warming my face, and looked around the table at my family. These people who claimed to love me but couldn't see me as anything other than a collection of failures. They had no idea what was coming, no idea that while they were cataloging my deficiencies, I'd been building something extraordinary in secret. No idea that their poor, single, unsuccessful Verity was about to flip their world upside down. But it was Tamara who delivered the final blow, just as I sucked in a breath to blow out the candles. Oh my God, I just had the best idea, she squealed, clapping her manicured hands together. My cousin Derek just got divorced. He's a dentist. A little boring and he's lost most of his hair, but honestly, beggars can't be choosers at this point, right? Want me to set you up? The family erupted in enthusiasm. That's perfect. Mom clasped her hands together like Tamara had just solved world hunger. A dentist. Dad perked up for the first time all evening. Good benefits, stable income. He drives a BMW, Tamara added, already pulling out her phone. I mean, it's leased, but still. I looked at each of their faces, so excited about the prospect of pawning me off on boring Derek the divorced dentist, and I smiled. Not the fake smile I'd been wearing all evening, but a real one. Because they had no idea that in exactly 1 week, they'd all be scrambling for invitations to an event that would make them realize just how badly they'd underestimated me. I blew out all 30 candles in one breath, and as the smoke cleared, I saw my future spreading out before me. Not the one they'd planned with Derek the dentist and his leased BMW, but the one I'd been building in secret, brick by brick, word by word, dream by dream. So what did you wish for? Roxanne asked, already cutting the cake. Can't tell you, I said, accepting my piece. Then it won't come true. But the truth was my wish had already come true. They just wouldn't know about it for another 7 days. 7 days until they received those mysterious invitations. 7 days until they walked into that conference room at the Ritz-Carlton. 7 days until they learned that their biggest failure had become their greatest success story. I took a bite of cake and listened to them plan my date with Derek, nodding along like the good daughter they thought they knew. Chester was showing Preston boat photos again. Tamara was calculating how many followers she could gain from posting about setting up her sister-in-law. Mom was already mentally planning what I should wear on this hypothetical date. Dad had returned to polishing his glasses, satisfied that someone else was solving the verity problem. Not one of them noticed the small, secret smile I couldn't quite suppress. Not one of them saw the victory in my eyes. Not one of them suspected that their 30-year-old failure was about to teach them the most important lesson of their lives. Never, ever underestimate the quiet ones. The birthday dinner continued around me, their voices becoming background noise to the countdown in my head. 7 days, just 7 more days of being their disappointment. And then everything would change. The morning of my 30th birthday started like every other day in my studio apartment on the east side of town. My alarm went off at 6:30, and I rolled out of my Murphy bed, careful not to knock over the stack of notebooks on my nightstand. Those notebooks contained 5 years of my life, but to anyone else, they'd look like the scattered thoughts of someone who couldn't get their life together. I showered quickly, dressed in my usual work attire, a simple black dress from Target that I'd owned for 3 years, and made coffee in my single-serving French press. My apartment was exactly 400 square feet, with one window that faced a brick wall and a kitchen so small I could touch both walls if I stretched my arms out. But it was mine, and more importantly, it was quiet. No husband snoring beside me, no kids demanding breakfast, no mortgage hanging over my head like a guillotine. At work, the Hope Foundation occupied the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days. My desk sat in an open floor plan with 5 other coordinators, all of us working to secure funding for homeless shelters across the state. The pay was terrible. The hours were long, and according to my family, it was a complete waste of my business degree from State University. "Happy birthday, Verity," my coworker Janine called out, placing a grocery store cupcake on my desk. "The big 3-0. Any special plans?" "Family dinner tonight," I said, already dreading it. "That sounds nice." "You don't know my family." Janine laughed, but she didn't understand. Her family celebrated her work at a nonprofit. Mine treated it like I was serving a prison sentence for a crime I didn't commit. I spent the morning reviewing grant applications, answering emails, and fielding calls from shelter directors who needed everything from blankets to basic repairs. It wasn't glamorous work, but it mattered. Every approved grant meant someone had a warm bed for the night. Every successful fundraiser meant families stayed together instead of being separated by the system. At lunch, I sat in my car in the parking lot and pulled out my phone. Not to scroll through social media like Tamara would assume, but to check a different kind of notification. 3 emails sat in my private account, the one my family didn't know existed. The subject lines made my heart race, but I couldn't open them yet. Not until after tonight's dinner. I needed to play my part perfectly for just a few more hours. The drive to my parents' house that evening took me through the neighborhood where I'd grown up. Every house looked identical. 2 stories, attached garage, manicured lawn, invisible fence to keep the dogs in and the undesirables out. This was success according to the Morrison family playbook: a house in the suburbs, a spouse with a respectable job, 2.5 kids, and a retirement plan that would kick in at 65. I'd memorized this playbook by age 10. By 15, I knew I'd never follow it. By 20, I'd stopped trying to explain why. And by 25, I'd started building something entirely different while letting them believe I was failing at theirs. My Honda Civic, yes, the same one from college, pulled into my parents' driveway at 5:40. Preston's Tesla was already there, gleaming like a monument to everything I hadn't achieved in their eyes. Uncle Chester's truck sat crooked, taking up too much space, just like Chester himself. Roxanne's minivan had one of those stick-figure family decals on the back window. Mom, Dad, 3 kids, and a dog. The American dream in adhesive form. Inside, the house smelled exactly as it had for 30 years. Pot roast and judgment with a side of disappointment. The walls held the same photos in the same frames: Preston's MBA graduation, Roxanne's wedding, Tamara and Preston on their honeymoon in Cabo, Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary cruise. I appeared in exactly 3 photos: my high school graduation, my college graduation, and one family Christmas photo from 5 years ago, where I stood on the end, like I might drift away if not anchored by proximity to successful relatives. The living room furniture hadn't changed since 1995, but Mom had covered it with those protective plastic covers that made everyone sweat in summer and stick in winter. The coffee table held her collection of Better Homes and Gardens magazines, all bookmarked to articles about how to help your adult children find success and when your kids don't give you grandchildren. This was the stage for tonight's performance, and I knew my role perfectly. I was Verity, the family project, the cautionary tale, the one they discussed in concerned whispers at other people's weddings. In 3 hours, they'd sing Happy Birthday while secretly calculating how many more years I had before it became really sad instead of just concerning. I smoothed my Target dress, put on my practice smile, and walked into my 30th birthday dinner, knowing it would be the last time they'd ever look at me this way. The birthday cake sat in front of me like a chocolate monument to my inadequacy, 30 candles casting shadows across my family's expectant faces. Mom had turned off the dining room lights for the full effect, and in the flickering glow, I could see each of them preparing their annual assessment of my life. "Make a wish, sweetie," Mom said, her voice carrying that particular note of desperation she'd developed over the past 5 years of my persistent singlehood. I leaned forward, ready to blow out the candles, when the whispers started. They thought the darkness and the distance would hide their words, but 30 years in this family had taught me that the Morrisons were genetically incapable of actual whispering. 30 and still single, my mother murmured to Aunt Helen, who was joining us via FaceTime propped against the centerpiece. Still in that tiny apartment. Still at that nonprofit, Dad added, shaking his head slowly. $40,000 a year with a business degree. The return on investment is just not there. Preston didn't even bother lowering his voice. You know what her problem is? No ambition. Success requires sacrifice, and Verity just wants to coast through life helping homeless people, or whatever it is she does. Preston, Tamara touched his arm. Be nice. Not everyone can be as driven as you. But then, she turned to her phone camera, narrating for her Instagram story. Guys, celebrating my sister-in-law's 30th. Never too late to glow up, right? Speaking of which, I've been thinking about doing a makeover series. Should I start with Verity? Comment below. The candles were starting to drip wax onto the frosting. I stayed frozen in position, listening to their symphony of disappointment. Roxanne shifted the baby to her other hip. I mean, 30 isn't that old. My friend Jessica didn't meet her husband until 32. Of course, she had to settle for a divorced guy with kids, but at least she's not alone. The dating pool definitely shrinks after 30, Uncle Chester announced with the authority of someone who'd been divorced twice. Trust me, I'm out there. It's slim pickings. Verity better lower her standards if she wants to catch someone. That's when Tamara dropped her phone with a clatter that made everyone jump. Oh my God, she squealed, grabbing her phone and waving it like she'd discovered gold. I just had the most amazing idea. This is perfect. My cousin Derek just got divorced last month. The room erupted in interest. I remained bent over the cake, watching wax pool on chocolate frosting. He's a dentist, Tamara continued, already scrolling through her photos. Has his own practice in Westfield. He's like totally stable. Good income, owns his house, drives a BMW. A dentist. Mom clasped her hands together. Oh, Tamara, that's wonderful. Dentists make excellent husbands. So reliable. Is he tall? Roxanne asked. Verity always said she wanted someone tall. That was when she was 22, Preston scoffed. She can't afford to be picky anymore. Tamara found the photo and passed her phone around. Okay, so he's lost most of his hair, but he makes up for it with personality. And he's only been divorced once, which is pretty good for our age group. I finally straightened up, 30 candles still burning in front of me. He's not much to look at, Chester said, examining the phone. But beggars can't be choosers, right, Verity? His ex-wife was crazy, Tamara added quickly. Like, actually crazy. She thought he was too boring and wanted more excitement. But boring is good, right? Boring is stable. Dad took the phone, adjusted his glasses. He looks responsible. That's what matters. Verity, this could be exactly what you need. We could invite him to dinner next week. Mom was already planning. I'll make my lasagna. Everyone loves my lasagna. Wait, does he have kids? Roxanne asked. 2, Tamara said. But they live with their mom. He gets them every other weekend, so it's like built-in family without the full-time responsibility. Perfect for someone who's never had kids, Mom added, looking pointedly at my still flat stomach. Preston leaned back in his chair. You should jump on this, Verity. A professional man with his own practice? That's the kind of stability you need. Plus, if you marry a dentist, you'll get free dental care. Do you even have dental insurance at that nonprofit? I have dental insurance, I said quietly. Yeah, but is it good dental insurance? He pressed. Derek could probably fix those bottom teeth of yours that are a little crooked. My teeth are fine. I'm just saying free dental work is nothing to sneeze at, Chester chimed in. My second wife's cousin was a dermatologist. Free Botox for 2 years. Best part of that marriage. Tamara was already typing. I'm texting him right now. Verity, what's your best angle for photos? Left side or right side? Never mind, I'll send him that one from Christmas where the lighting was good. The one where she's wearing the same dress as tonight, Roxanne observed. Does she only own one dress? It's a different dress, I said. They're both black and from Target, Tamara pointed out. That's basically the same dress. Mom stood up suddenly. This is perfect. A dentist? Oh, Verity, imagine the wedding. We could have it at the country club. Spring would be nice, though at your age you probably shouldn't wait too long. She could be engaged by Christmas if she plays her cards right, Dad calculated. Married by next summer. Maybe a kid by 32 if everything works properly. Her eggs are still viable, Roxanne offered helpfully. I read an article about fertility after 30. It's not great, but it's not impossible. Derek's kids could be like practice children. The candles had burned down significantly. Wax covered half the cake now. Should I blow these out? I asked. Make your wish first, Mom insisted. Wish for this date with Derek to go well. Wish for him to propose quickly, Tamara laughed. Like really quickly, before he realizes what he's getting into. They all laughed at that. The sound filled the dining room, bouncing off the walls covered in everyone else's wedding photos. I looked around the table at their eager faces. They'd already married me off to boring Derek, the divorced dentist. In their minds, I was already living in Westfield, stepmother to his kids, getting free dental work and posting photos of my BMW driving husband on the Instagram account Tamara would force me to create. I took a deep breath and blew out all 30 candles in one long exhale. Smoke filled the air between us. So? Mom asked eagerly. What did you wish for? I picked up the cake knife and cut the first piece, a corner with extra frosting. I wished for exactly what I deserve. They all nodded approvingly, assuming I meant Derek the dentist with his receding hairline, and his every other weekend kids. That's my girl, Dad said, looking relieved, finally coming to her senses. As I served the cake, Tamara's phone buzzed. Oh my God, he already responded. He wants to meet you next Friday. This is happening, people. The family cheered. Champagne appeared from somewhere. They toasted to my future with Derek, to dental insurance, to BMWs and borrowed children, to finally becoming the success story they could brag about at neighborhood barbecues. I raised my glass with them, smiled at their joy, and silently counted down the days until they discovered what I'd really been doing while they were planning my mediocre future. 7 days until the invitations arrived. 7 days until their world shifted on its axis. To Verity, Preston said, raising his glass. Finally joining the real world. To Verity, I echoed, knowing the real world they believed in was about to crumble. I drove home from the birthday dinner with their voices echoing in my head. Derek the dentist would text me tomorrow, Tamara had promised. Mom had already started a Pinterest board for wedding ideas. Preston had offered to review my financial portfolio before I merged assets with my future husband. The absurdity of it all should have made me laugh, but instead it filled me with a strange sense of calm. My studio apartment welcomed me back with its familiar silence. I kicked off my shoes, hung up my Target dress, and sat at my desk, a real antique I'd rescued from a garage sale 5 years ago. The laptop waited there, closed, patient, holding secrets that would shatter every assumption my family had ever made about me. I opened it and logged into my private email account. 3 messages sat unread, all marked with high-priority flags. The first was from Sandra Chen, Senior Vice President at Amazon Studios. The second from my literary agent, Marcus Wells. The third from Bradley Cooper's production company. But before I read them, I pulled out the bottom drawer of my desk and retrieved a thick manila folder labeled Project Chrysalis. Inside were 5 years of contracts, correspondence, and creative development, the real story of what Verity Morrison had been doing while her family thought she was wasting her life. It started freshman year of college when I took a screenwriting elective to fill a requirement. Professor Williams had pulled me aside after reading my first assignment. "This is exceptional work," she'd said. "Have you considered pursuing this professionally?" I hadn't, but the seed was planted. While Preston was getting his MBA and learning to speak in corporate buzzwords, I was writing scripts in coffee shops at midnight. While Roxanne was planning her wedding at 22, I was studying story structure and character development. While Tamara was building her Instagram following, I was building entire worlds on the page. The nonprofit job wasn't a failure, it was a strategic choice. It gave me stable income, health insurance, and most importantly, evenings and weekends free to write. My coworkers thought I was dedicated when I stayed late. Really, I was using the empty office to take video calls with Hollywood executives who assumed I was working from a home office. Midnight Harbor began as a simple concept. A woman returns to her suffocating hometown and slowly reveals she's been living a double life. Write what you know, they say. I knew disappointment. I knew condescension. I knew what it felt like to be seen as less than while holding greatness inside like a secret flame. The first draft took a year. The second, 6 months. By the third draft, I had an agent. By the fourth, we were taking meetings. And by the fifth, we had a bidding war between 3 major streaming platforms. I opened Sandra Chen's email. Verity, everything is confirmed for Thursday's announcement. The press release goes out at 2 p.m. sharp. The cast is thrilled to be there. Bradley specifically asked if you needed anything. Marketing has prepared everything we discussed. The 3-season guarantee is locked, and legal has approved your producer credits. Congratulations again. You've earned this moment. Marcus Wells's email was shorter, but equally thrilling. Simon & Schuster came back with their final offer for the novelization rights. It's $500K for a 2-book deal. They want the first book to coincide with the series premiere. Call me when you can. Bradley Cooper's production company email contained logistics for Thursday, plus a personal note from Bradley himself. Verity, I've been acting for 20 years, and this is one of the best pilots I've ever read. Thank you for trusting me with James. Can't wait for the world to meet these characters. I leaned back in my desk chair, the same one my mother had called depressing last Christmas. Everything was in place. The announcement would happen in 6 days, but my family needed invitations, something that would intrigue them enough to show up without revealing the truth. I opened a new document and began typing. The pleasure of your company is requested at an exclusive announcement event regarding Verity Morrison. Thursday, September 11th, 2 p.m., the Ritz-Carlton. Downtown cocktail attire requested. Please RSVP to confirm attendance. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I ordered 8 invitation cards from a 24-hour printing service, selecting their most elegant design, cream cardstock with gold embossing. Each envelope would be hand-addressed. They would arrive Tuesday morning, giving my family just enough time to speculate wildly about what this could mean. Then I opened my closet and looked at my wardrobe, mostly Target, some Old Navy, a few pieces from department store sales. Hidden in the back, wrapped in a garment bag, hung a single designer dress. Emerald green, purchased last month with my first advance check, saved for this exact moment. $4,000 for one dress. More than Preston spent on his suits, more than Tamara's entire handbag collection, more than my monthly rent. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Verity. This is Derek. Tamara gave me your number. Would love to take you to dinner Friday. I know a great place that has excellent venues. Sorry, dentist humor. What do you say? I stared at the message. Poor Derek with his bad dentist jokes and his boring stability. In another universe, maybe I would have been grateful for the setup. Maybe I would have settled for someone else's definition of success. I typed back, Hi, Derek. Thanks for reaching out. Unfortunately, I have a prior commitment that day. Best of luck to you. Then I deleted Tamara's follow-up texts asking why I hadn't responded with more enthusiasm. I had work to do. I spent the rest of the night preparing. I contacted my hairstylist and makeup artist confirming Thursday appointments. I arranged for a car service. No Honda Civic for this event. I reviewed my talking points for the press conference, the answers to questions. Reporters would ask, the story of how a nonprofit coordinator had secretly built a television empire. At 3 a.m, I finally closed my laptop and looked around my tiny studio apartment one last time as the place where Verity the failure lived. In 6 days, everything would change. The apartment would stay the same. I genuinely loved my little space. But the woman who lived here would finally be seen for who she really was. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the family group chat. Tamara had posted 17 messages about Derek. Mom had shared 3 articles about women who found love after 30. Preston had sent a link to a financial planning seminar for late bloomers. "Thank you," I whispered to the glowing screen. "Thank you for underestimating me so completely." Because their doubts had been my fuel. Their whispers had been my motivation. Their pity had been the foundation on which I'd built something extraordinary. Every family dinner where they'd discussed my failures, I'd gone home and written another scene. Every suggestion that I lower my standards had pushed me to raise them higher. Every whispered still single, still a failure, had become another reason to succeed on my own terms. The invitations would mail tomorrow. The countdown had officially begun. Thursday arrived wrapped in September sunshine and the kind of nervous energy that made my hands shake as I applied my lipstick. The emerald dress fit perfectly, its silk fabric catching the light like liquid gemstones. My hair was styled in an elegant updo that cost more than a week of my nonprofit salary. The makeup artist had worked subtle magic, making me look like myself but elevated, refined, ready for cameras. The car service arrived at 1:30. A black town car, not ostentatious, but undeniably elegant. The driver held the door open, calling me Miss Morrison with the kind of respect my family reserved for Preston's investment banking colleagues. The Ritz-Carlton downtown rose like a glass and steel promise against the skyline. Inside, the conference room was already buzzing with energy. Reporters adjusted their cameras, entertainment journalists checked their recorders, and there, sitting in a cluster of studio executives, was Bradley Cooper himself, reviewing his notes. "Verity." Sandra Chen approached me with a warm smile. "You look absolutely stunning. Are you ready for this?" "5 years ready," I said. At 1:45, my family arrived in a confused herd. I watched from the side entrance as security directed them to their reserved front row seats. Mom clutched her purse like a life preserver, wearing the same dress she'd worn to Roxanne's wedding. Dad kept checking his phone, probably calculating how much time this was taking from his afternoon. Preston looked annoyed, his foot tapping impatiently against the marble floor. "What is this?" I heard Mom whisper to Tamara. "The invitation just said an announcement about Verity." "Maybe she got promoted," Tamara suggested, though her voice carried doubt. "Like to a real job? At the Ritz-Carlton?" Roxanne adjusted her baby on her lap. "That seems excessive for a non-profit promotion." Chester pointed at the stage setup. "Is that a podium? Why does this look like a press conference? Is that Bradley Cooper?" Preston suddenly sat straighter. "What the hell is Bradley Cooper doing here?" The lights dimmed slightly. Sandra Chen stepped to the podium. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sandra Chen, Senior Vice President at Amazon Studios. We're thrilled to be here today for a very special announcement about a project we believe will define the next era of streaming television." My family exchanged bewildered glances. Tamara had stopped filming, her phone hanging forgotten in her hand. 5 years ago, Sandra continued, a script landed on my desk that made me cry, laugh, and call my boss at midnight to say I'd found something extraordinary. That script became Midnight Harbor, and today we're proud to announce Amazon Prime's biggest original series commitment to date. A screen behind her lit up with the show's logo. The production budget flashed on screen, $30 million per season, 3 seasons guaranteed. But the real story here, Sandra smiled, isn't just about the show. It's about its creator. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the writer, creator, and executive producer of Midnight Harbor, Verity Morrison. I walked onto the stage as cameras flashed like lightning. The sound my mother made was something between a gasp and a cry. I took the podium, my hands steady now, my voice clear. Good afternoon, everyone. 5 years ago, I made a choice. I chose to work at a nonprofit by day, serving my community while building this project at night. Every rejection letter became motivation. Every closed door taught me to build my own. And every person who looked at my life and saw a failure gave me another reason to redefine success. I found my father's eyes. He was gripping his program so tight it was crumpling. Midnight Harbor is about a woman who returns to her hometown for her 30th birthday, where her family sees her as a disappointment. The pilot episode, I paused, looking directly at Preston, is titled, Still Single, Still a Success. It's deeply personal. It's about the assumptions we make, the dreams we dismiss, and the people we underestimate. A reporter raised her hand. Miss Morrison, can you tell us about the casting? Bradley Cooper will play James, the male lead. We've also cast Emma Stone, Viola Davis, and Michael B. Jordan in supporting roles. Another reporter. Is it true Netflix also made an offer? 3 networks bid on this project. We chose Amazon because they understood the vision and offered complete creative control. What about the companion book deal we've heard about? Simon & Schuster will be publishing 2 novels based on the series. The first releases next year. My family sat frozen as if someone had pressed pause on their entire existence. Tamara's mouth hung open. Mom was crying, though I couldn't tell if they were tears of joy or shock. Chester looked like he'd been hit with his own boat. One more thing, I added. I want to thank my family, who are here in the front row. The cameras swung toward them. They've been my unwitting inspiration. Every family dinner where they worried about my future, every suggestion that I lower my standards, every moment they thought I was failing, it all went into this show. You'll recognize yourselves in Season 1, though I've changed the names. The press conference continued for another 20 minutes. Questions about budget, filming locations, air dates. Through it all, my family sat motionless, watching their unemployed, unmarried, unsuccessful Verity command a room full of entertainment industry power players. When it ended, when the reporters had gone and the executives had shaken hands and departed, my family remained in their seats. I walked down to them, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Verity, Mom started, her voice cracking. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have listened? I asked gently. Or would you have spent 5 years telling me how to do it better, how to be more realistic, how to lower my expectations? Preston cleared his throat. The budget they mentioned. $30 million per season. Your producer fee on top of that would be more than you make in 5 years, I finished. Yes. Tamara finally found her voice. You met Bradley Cooper? You know Bradley Cooper? We've been working together for 6 months. He's lovely. Sends his regards, by the way. Chester stood up shakily. So when we were saying you were a failure, I was writing your dialogue for episode 3. Dad removed his glasses, cleaned them, put them back on as if that might change what he was seeing. The nonprofit job? I'm keeping it. I believe in the work. Plus, we're donating 10% of the show's profits to homeless shelters. Roxanne bounced her baby nervously. We said such horrible things. At your birthday, we were trying to set you up with Derek the dentist. Derek seems nice. I hope he finds someone. But we thought... Mom couldn't finish. You thought I was broken and needed fixing. You thought my life was empty because it didn't look like yours. You thought success only came in one shape, one size, one timeline. Preston stood up, and for the first time in my life, my successful brother looked small. You let us believe you were struggling. No, I corrected. You assumed I was struggling. I just didn't correct you. The Ritz-Carlton's marble lobby echoed with our footsteps as we walked toward the exit. My family moved like sleepwalkers, occasionally stealing glances at me as if I might disappear, revealing this had all been a dream. At the door, Mom stopped. The invitation said this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was, I said, the opportunity for you to see me as I really am. The valet brought around the town car. As I slid inside, Tamara called out, Verity! Wait, can I visit the set? For my followers? I smiled through the window. All 847 of them are welcome to watch the behind-the-scenes content on Amazon. The car pulled away, leaving my family standing on the sidewalk, still processing the revelation that their biggest failure had just become their greatest success story. In the rearview mirror, I watched them grow smaller, and for the first time in 30 years, I felt myself grow larger, expanding to fill the space I'd always deserved to occupy. A week after the announcement, I hosted a real birthday dinner in my studio apartment. No Ritz-Carlton, no cameras, no press, just Chinese takeout containers spread across my coffee table and my family sitting on floor cushions because I only owned 2 chairs. They arrived one by one, each carrying something. Mom brought a store-bought cake that said, "Congratulations" in lopsided frosting. Dad had a bottle of champagne from the gas station. Preston showed up with craft beer, Tamara with her phone already recording, Roxanne with her kids and an apologetic smile, and Chester with, inexplicably, a potted plant. "I didn't know what to bring someone who just became famous," he admitted, setting the plant on my windowsill. We sat in my tiny space, the same one Mom had called depressing 6 months ago, the same one Preston said was proof I'd given up on life. Now they looked around with different eyes, seeing the notebooks stacked on every surface, the vision board hidden behind the bathroom door, the dozens of rejection letters I'd framed and hung as motivation. "This is where you wrote it?" Roxanne asked, touching my desk reverently. "Every word." "While we were at Sunday dinners discussing your failure to launch," Dad said quietly, "you were here creating an empire." "Not an empire," I corrected. "Just a dream that happened to be bigger than the box you tried to put me in." Tamara had been uncharacteristically quiet. Finally, she spoke. "I posted about you, about the show. My followers went from 847 to 23,000 in 3 days." "That's wonderful, Tamara." "No, it's not," she said, surprising me. "I built my entire platform on being better than you. Every post where I showed my designer bags, my perfect marriage, my husband's success, I was really saying, at least I'm not Verity. And now everyone knows you were the successful one all along." Preston set down his beer. "I gave you so much advice, so much terrible, condescending advice. I told you to be realistic, to lower your expectations, to settle for good enough." "You told me what worked for you," I said. "It just didn't work for me." Mom had been crying quietly since she arrived. "We failed you." Parents are supposed to see their children's potential, and we couldn't see past our own narrow definition of success. "You didn't fail me," I said, and meant it. "You motivated me. Every time you doubted me, I wrote harder. Every time you tried to make me smaller, I dreamed bigger. Your lack of faith became my fuel." "That's a terrible thing for a parent to hear," Dad said, removing his glasses to wipe his eyes. "No, it's honest. And honestly, I don't think I would have pushed so hard if you'd believed in me from the start. Your doubt made me bulletproof." Chester raised his beer. "To Verity, who played the longest con in Morrison family history." "It wasn't a con," I laughed. "It was patience. We ate lo mein and orange chicken while I told them stories from the past 5 years. The late nights writing in 24-hour diners, the phone calls with agents taken in bathroom stalls at work, the time Bradley Cooper called while I was at a family barbecue and I had to pretend it was a telemarketer. "Wait," Roxanne said suddenly. "At my gender reveal party, you left early saying you had a headache." Zoom meeting with Netflix executives. "Christmas dinner 2 years ago when you had the stomach flu?" Mom asked, rewriting the entire 2nd season. "My wedding anniversary party?" Preston demanded. "Contract negotiations with Amazon." They kept finding moments, piecing together the truth that had been hiding in plain sight. Every early exit, every declined invitation, every time I'd seemed distracted or distant, I'd been building something extraordinary while they planned my intervention. "I have something to tell you," Mom said suddenly. She pulled out her phone and showed me a text thread with someone named Linda. "Derek the dentist. I told Linda you weren't interested. Mom, I already told him—" "No, let me finish. I told her my daughter was too busy creating television history to date her boring son, and then I blocked her number." We all stared at Mom. "What?" she said defensively. "He wasn't good enough for you." None of them would have been. I see that now. Preston cleared his throat. I quit my job yesterday. The room went silent. I've been miserable for 3 years, he continued, watching you stand on that stage, talking about choosing your own definition of success. I realized I've been living my life according to someone else's playbook, Dad's probably. Preston, Dad started. No, it's okay. I'm 33 years old and I've never asked myself what I actually want. Verity knew at 25. She had the courage to chase it alone, in secret, without any of our support. Tamara took his hand. We're selling the Tesla. And the house. Preston wants to teach. High school math. The pay cut will be substantial, Preston added, but Verity taught me something. Success isn't about the size of your bank account. It's about the size of your impact. Plus, Tamara added with a small smile, my follower count is high enough now that I can get real sponsorships. Good ones. I'm going to rebrand as Authentically Tamara. No more fake, perfect life posts. As the evening wore on, something shifted in my tiny apartment. The walls didn't move, the space didn't get bigger, but the people inside it did. We expanded to fill it with laughter that wasn't forced, conversations that weren't competitions, and silences that weren't judgmental. I have one more announcement, I said as they prepared to leave. The pilot episode, Still Single, Still a Success, it's dedicated to you, all of you. Why? Chester asked. We were awful. Because family isn't about being perfect. It's about growing together, even when that growth happens at different speeds and in different directions. You may not have believed in my dreams, but you gave me something to prove. That's a gift, even if neither of us knew it at the time. Mom hugged me at the door, holding on longer than usual. Will you forgive us? There's nothing to forgive, but there is something to learn. What's that? Never underestimate the quiet ones. We're usually planning something spectacular. As they filed out of my apartment, each carrying leftover Chinese food and hard-won wisdom, Dad turned back. Verity? That thing you said at the press conference about redefining success? Yeah? I'm proud of you. Not because you succeeded, but because you never let us convince you that you'd failed. After they left, I sat in my quiet apartment, surrounded by empty takeout containers and full hearts. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek the dentist. Saw the news about your show. Congratulations. For what it's worth, I think you would have been too interesting for me anyway. I laughed and deleted the message, then opened my laptop. Season 2 needed work, and I had a story to tell. A story about families who love imperfectly, dreams that grow in darkness, and success that comes not from meeting others' expectations, but from exceeding your own. The cursor blinked on the blank page. I started typing, Chapter 1, The Family Dinner. Because every ending is really just a beginning in disguise, and my story, my real story, was just getting started. If you enjoyed this story about family, success, and staying true to yourself, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that their dreams are valid, no matter what anyone else says. Have you ever been underestimated by people who should have believed in you? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you proved them wrong. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about underdogs who became champions, dreamers who became doers, and quiet ones who changed everything. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might change your perspective on what success really means. Until next time, remember, your timeline is the only one that matters.